Jay-Z ain't answering the phone?
He ain't answering the motherfucking phone.
And I remember one time walking in the studio, bleak beans, everybody was in there, and I was like, man, I'm telling you, man, y'all got a chance right now, just flood it, put out a lot of music, because 50 Cent is coming. And 4 months later, in the club hit, and it was over. It was just like, okay, now everybody got to sit on the sidelines and wait this tidal wave out.
Two kings, two empires, one silent war. Jay-Z and 50 Cent never exchanged open shots like Drake and Pusha T, but behind the suits, champagne, and billions lies a deep-rooted tension. It's more than competition. It's ego, legacy, and a battle for power at the top of hip-hop. What really happened behind the scenes? Why did they never join forces, even as moguls? This isn't just rap beef. It's a power play that shaped an entire generation of music and money. Jay-Z wasn't just a rapper. From day one, he was building an empire. Rockefeller wasn't just a label, it was his kingdom. By the early 2000s, he was already thinking like a CEO, not a street rapper. That's why when new stars started rising from the streets, aggressive, unfiltered, and loud, Jay watched them carefully. He respected hustle, but he also valued control. And 50 Cent, he was the definition of uncontrollable. That made him both a threat and a test. Would Jay-Z co-sign him or quietly block the rise? When Jay-Z became president of Def Jam in 2004, he held major power over who got signed, promoted, or shelved. 50 Cent, meanwhile, was dominating with G-Unit in his aftermath shady deals. But insiders say Jay blocked several rising NY rappers who were close to 50. Not openly, but silently. It was chess, not checkers. Jay didn't diss 50 publicly, but he made sure no G-Unit affiliate threatened his empire from the inside. It wasn't beef, it was business warfare. Jay-Z never sought validation from the streets the way 50 did. He came from the Marcy projects, but once he crossed into corporate, he never looked back. 50 Cent's brand was built on raw authenticity, gun wounds, and rebellion. Jay's brand was about transformation, drug dealer turned billionaire. For him, aligning with 50 could damage the Polish he had built. That's why, despite 50's fame, he kept his distance. Not because he feared him, but because 50 didn't fit into his vision of growth. When 50 Cent dropped Get Rich or Die Tryin', he didn't just change music, he shifted the power structure. He had Dr. Dre and Eminem behind him, but he didn't play the industry's politics. That scared a lot of executives, especially in New York. 50 called out everyone, even legends. Jay-Z wasn't exempt. Even if he wasn't mentioned by name, 50's aggressive takeover was a message. I'm here, and I don't care who runs what. The energy was disruptive, and Jay didn't like disruption. 50 Cent never directly dissed Jay-Z in early interviews, but his tone was always dismissive. He called out New York artists for being too friendly with each other. He mocked the cool guys of the industry who wore suits and never got their hands dirty. It was indirect, but fans read between the lines. Jay-Z represented everything 50 hated, and 50 represented everything Jay had evolved past. And even without bars being exchanged, the tension was thick in the culture. At his peak, 50 didn't just want sales, he wanted power. He launched his own label, clothing line, movies, and tried to sign artists before they broke. Even some who Jay-Z was watching. Every time Jay made a corporate move, 50 responded with something louder, brasher, or riskier. Their paths never crossed directly, but in boardrooms and behind closed doors, it was known. 50 wanted to outdo Jay. And Jay, he made sure he always stayed one step ahead. In an industry full of diss tracks and clout chasing, Jay-Z's silence was strategic. When 50 Cent kept dominating charts, clowning rivals, and stirring drama, Jay barely responded publicly. That silence wasn't respect, it was power. Jay knew speaking on 50 would elevate him more, so instead he worked behind the scenes, securing deals, climbing higher. He wasn't battling 50 on records, he was battling him at the table, where the real money was. And that silence, it told 50 everything he needed to know. At Summer Jam 2006, Jay-Z brought out Nas, his former enemy turned ally, to make a statement. He could squash any beef, align with any legend. The crowd erupted. And while 50 was watching, he knew what that meant. Jay was tightening his grip on New York. Nas had once been 50's potential ally too, but Jay outplayed him. 50 may have been louder, but Jay's moves echoed in every corner of the city. Power wasn't just in the bars, it was in alliances. By 2008, Jay-Z had launched Roc Nation. Not just a label, but a full-blown empire. It wasn't gritty or aggressive. It was polished, brand-friendly, and global. He signed athletes, artists, and negotiated billion-dollar deals. Meanwhile, 50 Cent was still pushing the G-Unit vision. Raw, street-focused, and built on loyalty. The two visions couldn't coexist. Roc Nation was the industry's future. G-Unit was the past with teeth. Jay's success wasn't personal to 50, but it made it harder for G-Unit to be seen as the top game in town. 50 Cent knew how to bait people. He used interviews, skits, and even social media to take subtle shots at Jay-Z's image. He'd call him boring, corporate, or mock him for being too distant from the culture. He joked about Jay not helping artists unless they fit his elite club. These jabs weren't random. 50 understood that by poking at Jay's aloofness, he was turning fans against the idea that Jay-Z was still hip-hop. And while Jay stayed quiet, the streets were listening. One of the biggest turning points came when Beanie Siegel, a former Rockefeller soldier, turned on Jay-Z and claimed he abandoned his crew. 50 Cent saw the opening and welcomed Beanie publicly, offering him a platform and even a G-Unit cosign. This wasn't just about Beanie. It was 50's way of saying, "I ride for mine, unlike Jay." It made Jay look cold and gave 50 more street credibility. Whether it was genuine or strategic, 50 played that move like a master chess player. While building G-Unit Films and Vitamin Water success, 50 wasn't just chasing money, he was chasing legacy. He wanted to prove that street smarts could beat Ivy League moves. Every deal 50 made was louder, riskier, and meant to shake up Jay's corporate calm. He bragged about not needing a suit, not needing handshakes. He wanted to show the world that a hustler could play billionaire without changing who he was. Jay-Z may have taken the elevator, but 50 was climbing the stairs, punching walls on the way up. Jay-Z evolved into a symbol of sophistication. His investments weren't just in businesses. He was buying Basquiat's, launching luxury brands, and speaking at Harvard. It wasn't about money, it was about taste. Meanwhile, whispers spread that Jay no longer represented the gritty come-up. 50 Cent, watching closely, saw it as the final transformation. Jay was no longer the hustler, he was the establishment. And for some in the culture, that made Jay a target. Someone who had risen too far from the streets that made him. When Jay-Z sat next to Warren Buffett and Forbes, the internet lost its mind. This wasn't just a flex, it was a statement. Jay wasn't playing rap anymore, he was playing capitalism. But behind that headline was a shadow, because while Jay was networking with billionaires, many from Rockefeller were struggling. The optics were complex. Jay had elevated himself, but not everyone came with him. To 50 Cent, this was proof Jay picked the boardroom over the block and left his roots behind. Jay-Z once boycotted the Grammys for disrespecting DMX, but in recent years, he became their darling. He performed in suits, accepted awards, and shook hands with execs who once ignored hip-hop. 50 Cent mocked this shift, saying awards meant nothing if the culture wasn't respected. He refused to play the game, often skipping major ceremonies altogether. To him, Jay had crossed over too far, and the Grammys represented the ultimate betrayal of what hip-hop started as rebellion. For 50, it was never about trophies, it was about loyalty. Unlike Jay's quiet power moves, 50 Cent built his empire by making noise. TV shows, liquor deals, social media rants. He was in your face everywhere. He didn't just want success, he wanted credit. He wanted his name in lights and on headlines. In his mind, if you weren't dominating conversations, you were irrelevant. He saw Jay's low-key moves as too polished or too careful. 50 wanted to win, but he wanted to look like he was winning too. And that meant staying loud, aggressive, and undeniable. When 50 Cent started producing BMF based on Black Mafia family's real-life drug empire, the streets embraced it. It was raw, authentic, and reminded people where 50 came from. Meanwhile, Jay-Z's Roc Nation was partnering with the NFL and major brands. To fans, it felt like two different worlds. One told stories of survival and power in the streets, the other of luxury and legacy. 50 was bringing street legends to TV. Jay was hanging with Goodell, and fans couldn't help but choose a side. In a radio interview, 50 once joked about Beyoncé trying to check him in a hallway. It was lighthearted, but the message was deeper. 50 was still fearless, even around royalty. He didn't flinch when it came to Jay-Z's circle. That comment spread fast, and fans wondered if 50 was trying to poke the bear again. The fact he brought up Beyoncé, Jay's most prized relationship, was bold. Whether it was real or not, it reminded everyone, 50 would press anyone, even the Queen. Jay-Z turned Roc Nation into more than a label. It became a full-blown empire. Athletes, artists, moguls. It was polished, curated, and media-savvy. Meanwhile, G-Unit felt like a chaotic force, raw, volatile, and real. Jay played chess with CEOs. 50 played street ball with sharks. The contrast wasn't just in style, but in substance. Jay kept expanding upward. 50 stayed grounded in storytelling, street culture, and shock value. That gap kept growing, and so did the quiet distance between the two icons. Two kings ruling separate kingdoms with very different codes. When Jay-Z partnered with the NFL after the Colin Kaepernick fallout, it shocked the culture. Many saw it as a betrayal, especially from someone who once rapped about social justice. Jay defended his move, claiming it was about progress from within, but critics weren't buying it. 50 Cent threw subtle shade, calling it business over principle. In the war of perception, 50 stood with the streets, while Jay played chess with billionaires. The NFL deal wasn't just a move, it became a moral flashpoint, and it deepened the philosophical divide between them. When Jay-Z and Kanye released Watch the Throne, it was a cultural moment. Two titans teaming up. But one titan wasn't invited, 50 Cent. The omission wasn't lost on fans. In interviews, 50 downplayed it, but his tone said more than words. Some believed Jay didn't see 50 as creatively elite, only commercially. Others saw it as Jay aligning with the art crowd, distancing from the street kings. The throne was built, but 50 wasn't offered a seat. And from that point, the rivalry wasn't just personal, it became symbolic. In Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter, 50 Cent dropped gems and some shade. He discussed Jay-Z without naming names, questioning artists who turned mogul and lost touch with the people. Readers knew who he meant. It wasn't just criticism, it was strategy. 50 used his book to reinforce his brand as the no-filter king of success. Unlike Jay, who moved in silence, 50 weaponized transparency. And the way he told it, there were moguls, and then there were real ones. The book wasn't just a guide, it was a flex. Jay-Z launched Tidal to give artists more ownership in streaming. It was about equity, legacy, and long-term wins. Meanwhile, 50 Cent turned stars into his playground, with Power, BMF, and constant online rants when things didn't go his way. Both were pushing content, but in different ways. Jay aimed for legacy, 50 aimed for domination. Jay's streaming empire was high-level strategy. 50's content empire was volume, drama, and street storytelling. Two moguls with platforms, but very different methods of war. Jay-Z rarely posts. No tweets, no IG rants. His silence is his power. 50 Cent, the complete opposite. He lives on Instagram, trolling, marketing, and dropping bombs. Every post is part of his strategy. Jay believes mystery builds respect. 50 believes attention builds empires. Fans are split. Some admire Jay's class. Others love 50's chaos. But one thing's clear. In the era of content, both approaches work. And it's that difference in personality that makes their tension so fascinating, because neither will ever play by the other's rules. Beyoncé isn't just Jay-Z's wife. She's an empire herself. And for someone as image-conscious as her, not everyone gets access. Insiders say she wasn't thrilled with 50 Cent's brash style and public feuds. Behind closed doors, her influence matters. A lot. If Beyoncé wasn't comfortable, neither was Jay. 50 even admitted she once confronted him, making things icy. This wasn't just business politics, it was personal preference. And when you have Beyoncé in your corner, her instincts often become law. The invisible wall was built, and 50 was firmly on the outside. Jay-Z has collected Grammys like trophies, celebrated by the mainstream, praised by institutions. 50 Cent? Not so much. Despite massive success, he often felt snubbed. The divide is more than awards. It's about validation. Jay became the industry's favorite. 50 stayed the outsider. Powerful, but purposely rebellious. That Grammy gap fueled resentment. 50 saw Jay as the artist who played the game. Jay saw 50 as the one who refused to evolve. In an industry that rewards conformity, their approaches were night and day, and so was the treatment they received. Jay-Z talks about legacy like a mission. Roc Nation, the Reform Alliance, ownership, all pillars of a larger narrative. He's building a legend brick by brick. 50 Cent, his legacy is built on shockwaves, music, TV, books, memes. His footprint is undeniable, but his style, unfiltered, chaotic, unforgettable. Both have reshaped hip-hop, but when it comes to legacy, they're painting different portraits. Jay wants statues, 50 wants headlines, and neither is willing to respect the other's vision. That silent war over how history will remember them might be their realest conflict yet. As G-Unit fractured, many saw it as 50's failure, but he spun it differently. He outgrew them. While Jay built an empire with carefully selected allies, 50 often stood alone. He didn't nurture protégés, he dominated them. The fall of G-Unit was messy, but it gave birth to 50 the TV mogul, the entrepreneur, the solo juggernaut. Jay kept building a legacy with unity. 50 embraced isolation. For him, alliances were temporary, power, permanent. The fall wasn't the end, it was a pivot, and he never needed validation to reinvent. Despite crossing paths at major events, 50 and Jay have never squashed their tension. No collaboration, no public brotherhood, nothing. 50 has offered sarcastic compliments. Jay has responded with silence. In hip-hop, beefs fade, but this one, it aged like wine, bitter and full of layers. Maybe it's ego, maybe it's deeper. Two titans who shaped the culture and couldn't be more different. And fans, they love it. Because in a world where everyone's friends, this Cold War feels real. And authenticity, even in rivalry, still sells. Jay-Z and 50 Cent are both billion-dollar forces, but they represent two completely different ideologies. Jay is about strategy, silence, corporate elegance. 50 is raw, relentless, in your face. Both achieved greatness, but never on the same terms. That's why they'll never be friends, because it's not just personal, it's philosophical. Two kings in the same kingdom, but different rules. No handshake, no collaboration, just mutual dominance from two sides of hip-hop's evolving throne. And maybe that tension is what keeps their names forever intertwined. Not as allies, but as unmatched opposites.